How would you react if your husband handed you legal papers the morning after you demanded to sleep at another man's house? What happens when the person you blame for overreacting fights back with a lawyer? This is the story of the night my ultimatum backfired and my life changed in a single phone call. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible stories. I'm Eirene, 34 years old, and I work as an office administrator at a marketing firm downtown. My husband Halden is 36, a software engineer who's always been the steady, reliable type. We've been married for 9 years, have a 7-year-old daughter named Linnea, and live in a nice suburban townhouse with a 2-car garage and a small backyard where Linnea plays with her dolls. Or at least, that's how things used to be before everything fell apart. It started on a Thursday evening in October. I was standing in our kitchen, loading the dishwasher after dinner, when I decided to bring up something that had been on my mind all week. Rowan Hill, my personal trainer and close friend, was throwing a party at his apartment that Saturday night. It was going to be a late night, probably going until 3 or 4 in the morning, and I didn't want to drive home afterward. "Halden," I said, turning around to face him as he sat at the kitchen table reviewing some work documents on his laptop. "I need to talk to you about something." He looked up, pushing his glasses up his nose. "What's up?" "Rowan's having a party this Saturday, and I was thinking it might make sense for me to just crash there afterward instead of driving home late. You know how I feel about driving when I'm tired." Halden's expression shifted slightly. "Crash there? Like sleep over?" "Yeah, just on his couch or whatever. It's no big deal. Lots of people do it." I kept my voice casual, like this was the most normal thing in the world. "Eirene, I'm not really comfortable with that." His voice was quiet but firm. I felt my jaw tighten. This was exactly the reaction I'd expected from him, and it frustrated me to no end. "Why not? It's completely innocent. Rowan's been my friend for 2 years now. You've met him plenty of times." "I know, but sleeping over at another man's house when you're married, it just doesn't sit right with me." "That's incredibly old-fashioned, Halden. We're adults. I should be able to have male friends without you getting all jealous and possessive about it." Halden closed his laptop and leaned back in his chair. "This isn't about jealousy. It's about boundaries. What would you think if I asked to sleep over at another woman's house? If she was just a friend and it was practical, I'd be fine with it, because I trust you." I emphasized the last part, letting him know exactly what I thought about his lack of trust in me. "Eirene, please try to see this from my perspective." "No, you try to see it from mine," I snapped, my voice rising. "I'm tired of feeling like I have to ask permission for everything. I'm a grown woman. I can make my own decisions about where I sleep." Halden was quiet for a long moment, just looking at me. Finally, he said, "I need some time to think about this." That's when I made my biggest mistake. "Fine," I said, pulling out my phone. "But just so you know, if you try to control me on this, I'll file for divorce. I'm not going to live in a marriage where I can't even have normal friendships." As I typed out a quick text to Rowan, "It's happening. See you Saturday night." I didn't notice that Halden had gotten up from the table. By the time I looked up, he was already walking upstairs to our bedroom, his shoulders tense. I should have followed him. I should have apologized for threatening divorce over something so trivial. But I was too angry, too convinced that I was right and he was being unreasonable. Instead, I called my sister's cell. "He's being such a control freak," I complained into the phone, pacing around our living room. "All I want to do is sleep on a friend's couch, and he's acting like I'm having an affair." "Girl, you need to live your truth," Cell said, her voice full of righteous indignation. "You can't let him dictate who you can and can't be friends with. That's emotional abuse." "That's what I told him, but he just doesn't get it." "Maybe this will be a wake-up call for him. Show him that you're not going to be controlled." After I hung up with Cell, I felt vindicated. I was doing the right thing. Halden was being possessive and old-fashioned, and it was time for him to learn that I wasn't going to put up with it. I went upstairs around 11, expecting to find Halden in bed, reading like he usually did. But when I opened our bedroom door, I found him sitting on the edge of the bed, still fully dressed, staring at his phone. "Are you coming to bed?" I asked. He looked up at me, and something in his expression made my stomach flutter with unease. "I'll be there in a minute." But when I woke up the next morning, his side of the bed was still made. I found him downstairs in the kitchen, making coffee, dark circles under his eyes. "Did you sleep down here?" I asked. "I couldn't sleep," he said without looking at me. I kept thinking about our conversation. And I think we need to have a longer talk about what's happening in our marriage. I felt a flash of irritation. Nothing's happening in our marriage except that you don't trust me. "Eirene, when you threaten divorce because I express discomfort about something, that tells me we have bigger problems than just this party. I only said that because you were being unreasonable." Halden poured himself a cup of coffee and finally looked at me. "I've never tried to control who you're friends with, but asking to sleep over at another man's house crosses a line for me, and the fact that you can't understand why I'd be uncomfortable with that, it worries me." "So what are you saying?" "I'm saying I need to think about what this means for us." The way he said it made something cold settle in my stomach, but I pushed the feeling away. He was just trying to manipulate me into backing down. "Fine," I said. "Think all you want, but I'm still going to that party, and I'm still staying over if I want to." Halden nodded slowly. "I figured you'd say that." He left for work without kissing me goodbye, something he hadn't done in the entire 9 years we'd been married. That weekend, I decided to make a statement. If Halden was going to be stubborn about this, I'd show him, and everyone else, that I was a modern woman who didn't need her husband's permission to live her life. I arranged for us to have brunch on Sunday at Cornerstone, a trendy restaurant downtown that all our friends frequented. I invited Sel, my mother Moira, Halden's mother Judith, and a few couples from our social circle. I wanted witnesses to see how unreasonable Halden was being. "This should be fun," I told Halden on Sunday morning as I got ready, applying an extra coat of mascara. "It'll be good for us to get out and socialize." Halden was sitting on our bed, watching me get dressed. "Eirene, about last night." "What about it?" I'd gone to Rowan's party as planned, stayed until almost 4 a.m, and slept on his couch just like I'd said I would. It had been perfectly innocent, just like I'd told Halden it would be. "We need to talk about what happened." "Nothing happened. That's exactly my point." I turned to face him, hands on my hips. "I proved that you had nothing to worry about." That's not what I'm concerned about." "Then what?" Halden was quiet for a moment. "We'll talk about it later, after brunch." The restaurant was busy when we arrived, filled with the usual Sunday crowd of families and couples enjoying their weekend. I'd reserved a large table in the main dining area where everyone could see us. I wanted this to be public. Sel arrived first, giving me a big hug and whispering, "How did it go last night? Did you show him who's boss?" "Perfectly," I whispered back. "Nothing happened, just like I said." My mother showed up next, followed by Judith, who gave me a polite but cool greeting. I could tell Halden had probably talked to her about our argument, trying to get her on his side. Our friends Jake and Amanda Morrison arrived with their 2 kids, followed by Tom and Lisa Chen. Soon we had a full table, everyone chatting and laughing over mimosas and eggs Benedict. "So, Eirene," Amanda said, cutting into her pancakes, "I heard you had quite the night last night." I felt a little thrill of vindication. "Oh, you mean Rowan's party?" "Yeah, it was amazing. We danced until like 3 a.m. "And you stayed over?" Lisa asked, raising an eyebrow. "Just crashed on his couch. It was so much better than trying to drive home exhausted." I glanced at Halden, who was quietly eating his omelette. "Some people thought it was a big deal, but it was completely innocent." "I don't know," Jake said, looking uncomfortable. If Amanda wanted to sleep over at another guy's place, I'd probably have some feelings about that. That's because you're both stuck in these outdated gender roles, I said, feeling my voice get a little louder. In 2023, men and women can be friends without it meaning anything romantic. Of course they can, Judith said carefully, but there's also something to be said for respecting your partner's feelings about boundaries. What about respecting my feelings about being trusted? I shot back. The table got quiet. I could see people exchanging glances, and I realized I was coming across as more defensive than I'd intended. I needed to lighten the mood. Anyway, I said, forcing a laugh, Halden's just old-fashioned. He'll come around. That's when Rowan showed up. I hadn't invited him, but Cornerstone was his usual Sunday brunch spot, and when he saw our table, he came over to say hello. "Hey, beautiful," he said, leaning down to give me a hug that lasted just a little too long. "Thanks for keeping me company last night. I hope your husband doesn't mind that I stole you." The way he said it, with that charming smile and that slightly flirtatious tone, made everyone at the table tense up. I could feel Halden go completely still beside me. "Of course not," I said quickly. "We're all adults here." "Good man," Rowan said, clapping Halden on the shoulder. "Not every guy would be so cool about his wife sleeping over." "Yeah," Halden said quietly. "Not every guy." Rowan chatted for a few more minutes, making jokes and being his usual charismatic self, but I could tell everyone was uncomfortable. When he finally left, the table was silent. "Well," my mother said finally, "he seems friendly." "He's a great guy," I said, very supportive of my fitness goals. "I bet he is," Tom muttered under his breath. That's when Amanda's phone buzzed. She glanced at it and her expression changed. "Oh my God," she said. "What?" I asked. She looked up at me, then at Halden, then back at her phone. "Someone just sent me a video from last night." My stomach dropped. "What kind of video?" It's you and Rowan, at the party." She turned her phone toward me, and I saw myself on the screen, dancing with Rowan at his apartment. We were close, closer than I'd remembered. His hands were on my waist, and I was laughing, my head thrown back, my body pressed against his. "That's just dancing," I said quickly, but my voice sounded shrill, even to my own ears. "Eirene," Lisa said softly, "that's not just dancing." I looked around the table. Everyone was staring at me with expressions ranging from shock to disappointment. Even Sel looked uncomfortable. "You're all being ridiculous," I said. "It's a party. People dance. It doesn't mean anything." But as I said it, I caught sight of Halden. He was looking at his own phone, his face completely unreadable. Someone had sent him the video too. "Halden," I started, but he held up a hand. "I think we should go," he said calmly, signaling for the check. "We haven't finished eating. We're leaving. Now." The ride home was silent except for Linnea chattering in the back seat about her sleepover at Grandma Judith's house. I kept trying to catch Halden's eye, to explain that the video looked worse than it was, but he wouldn't look at me. When we got home, he went straight to his home office and closed the door. I followed him, knocking on the door. "Halden, can we please talk about this?" "Not right now, Eirene." "The video makes it look worse than it was. We were just dancing." "I said not right now." I stood outside his office door for 10 more minutes, but he wouldn't come out. Finally, I went upstairs and called Sel. "This is insane," I told her. "Everyone's acting like I committed adultery because I danced with a friend." "Well," Sel said, and her voice sounded different than it had the day before. "I mean, the video does look pretty intimate." "You too? I can't believe this. You're supposed to be on my side." "I am on your side, Eirene, but maybe you should think about how this looks from Halden's perspective." "I don't want to hear about Halden's perspective. I want to hear about my right to have friends and go to parties without being treated like a criminal." But even as I said it, I could hear how defensive I sounded, and somewhere, in the back of my mind, I was starting to worry that maybe I'd made a bigger mistake than I'd realized. Monday morning at work was a nightmare. I could feel people staring at me as I walked through the office, and conversation stopped when I approached. By lunchtime, I realized that the video from Rowan's party had somehow made its way through our entire social circle. "Eirene, can I see you in my office?" My boss, Patricia Williams, called me over around 2 o'clock. I followed her into her corner office, my heart pounding. Patricia was in her 50s, no nonsense, and had always been fair with me in the 3 years I'd worked there. "Close the door," she said, and I knew this wasn't going to be good. "Is everything okay?" I asked, sitting down across from her desk. "I'm going to be direct with you. There's a video circulating that shows you in what appears to be a compromising position with a man who isn't your husband. Several clients have seen it, and it's become a distraction." My face burned with embarrassment and anger. "That video is being taken completely out of context. I was just dancing with a friend at a party." "Eirene, I'm not judging your personal life, but when your personal life starts affecting the workplace, it becomes my concern." "How is it affecting the workplace?" Patricia sighed. "The Henderson account specifically asked that you not be assigned to their project anymore. They said they weren't comfortable with the drama surrounding you." I felt like I'd been slapped. "That's discrimination." "No, that's business. Our clients need to trust us, and right now, you've become a liability." "So, what are you saying?" "I'm saying you need to get this situation under control. Fast, and in the meantime, I'm reassigning you to internal projects only." I left Patricia's office feeling humiliated and furious. This was all Halden's fault. If he hadn't made such a big deal about me staying at Rowan's, none of this would be happening. I went back to my desk and immediately posted on Facebook, "Apparently women can't have male friends without everyone assuming the worst." So disappointed in people I thought were mature enough to understand that men and women can be platonic friends. Some of you should be ashamed of yourselves for spreading gossip and making assumptions. Double standards. Each stock of friendship, dog or trust. Within an hour, the post had dozens of comments, most of them not supportive. Amanda Morrison wrote, "Eirene, I think you're missing the point. This isn't about having male friends." Lisa Chen commented, "That video speaks for itself. I feel terrible for Halden." Even worse, my mother-in-law Judith had somehow seen the post and commented, "Sometimes the mature thing is to consider how our actions affect the people we love." I was so angry I was shaking. I called Sel, but for the first time since this whole thing started, she didn't immediately take my side. "Eirene, maybe you should just apologize to Halden and try to move past this." "Apologize for what? For having friends? For dancing at a party? For, I don't know, for not thinking about how it would look?" "I can't believe you're turning on me too." "I'm not turning on you. I'm trying to help you save your marriage." "My marriage would be fine if Halden wasn't so insecure and controlling." But even as I said it, I was starting to feel a creeping sense of doubt. That afternoon, I got an email from an address I didn't recognize. The subject line was just FYI. Inside was a folder of screenshots and files. Text messages between me and Rowan that I'd forgotten about, including some that were definitely flirtier than they should have been. A receipt from Uber showing a ride to his apartment at 1:30 a.m. 3 weeks ago, a night I'd told Halden I was working late. And the video from the party, but this version was longer and showed more of our interaction. Looking at it all together, I felt sick. It didn't look innocent. It looked like exactly what everyone thought it was. But I wasn't ready to admit that. Not yet. I forwarded the email to Halden with a message. "Someone is trying to sabotage our marriage with out-of-context screenshots and receipts. This is harassment." He wrote back an hour later, "We need to talk when I get home." When Halden got home that evening, I was ready for him. I'd spent the afternoon preparing my defense, going through each piece of evidence and coming up with explanations. "This is clearly a coordinated attack on our marriage," I said before he'd even put down his briefcase. "Someone is trying to make innocent interactions look suspicious." Halden sat down at the kitchen table and opened his laptop. Eirene, I've been doing some thinking. Good, because this whole thing has gotten completely out of hand. I agree. It has gotten out of hand. He turned the laptop toward me. I've been going through our phone records and credit card statements. My stomach dropped. Why would you do that? Because I needed to understand what's really been happening. He clicked through several screens. You've been texting Rowan an average of 50 times a day for the past 6 months. You've been to his apartment 7 times in the past 2 months, always when you told me you were somewhere else, and you've been paying for a gym membership that you never mentioned to me. I can explain all of that. I'm sure you can, but I don't think I want to hear it. What do you mean? Halden closed the laptop and looked at me directly. I mean, I think you've been having an affair, and I think you've been lying to me about it for months. That's not true. I felt tears starting to form in my eyes. Halden, I swear to you, I have never cheated on you. Yes, I've been spending time with Rowan, but it's completely platonic. The text messages don't read as platonic. We're just friends. We joke around. Can't wait to feel your hands on me again. Last night was amazing. Wish we didn't have to stop. That's joking around. I felt the blood drain from my face. I'd forgotten about those messages. They were taken out of context. We'd been talking about our training sessions, but I could see how they'd look to someone else. Those were about working out, I said weakly. Eirene, please stop lying to me. I'm not lying. Then explain the Uber rides. Explain why you've been going to his apartment and not telling me. Explain why you threatened to divorce me when I said I was uncomfortable with you sleeping over there. Because I knew you'd overreact, just like you're doing now. Halden was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, I think you should know that Linnea's teacher called me today. What? Why? Because Linnea has been telling her class that Mommy and Daddy are fighting all the time, and that Mommy has a new friend who makes Daddy sad. The guilt hit me like a physical blow. She doesn't understand what's happening. No, she doesn't, but she can feel it, and that's not fair to her. So what are you saying? I'm saying I've made an appointment with a lawyer. The room started spinning. Halden, no, you can't be serious. I'm completely serious. I've tried to make this work, but I can't be married to someone who lies to me and then gaslights me when I ask questions about it. I'm not gaslighting you. You are, Eirene. You've been doing it for months. Every time I've expressed concern about your relationship with Rowan, you've told me I'm being controlling or insecure. Every time I've asked you about inconsistencies in your stories, you've made me feel like I'm crazy for asking. Because you are being controlling. No, I'm being a husband who's watching his wife have an emotional affair and being told it's all in his head. That night, Halden moved into the guest room. I lay in our bed alone, staring at the ceiling, trying to figure out how everything had gone so wrong so fast. The next morning, my mother called. Eirene, honey, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me. What, Mom? Are you having an affair? Jesus Christ, not you too. I saw the video, sweetheart, and Judith showed me some of the text messages. Judith had no right to show you anything. She's worried about her son, and frankly, so am I. So I'm asking you directly, are you cheating on your husband? No, I am not cheating on my husband. But you're in love with this trainer. The question caught me off guard. What? No. Eirene. Mom, Rowan and I are friends, that's all. But even as I said it, I wasn't sure it was true anymore. Somewhere along the way, my feelings for Rowan had become more complicated than I wanted to admit. But that didn't mean I was having an affair. I think you need to be very honest with yourself about what you want, my mother said, because you're about to lose your husband and break up your daughter's family. Halden's the one talking about lawyers. Because you threatened to divorce him first. I was just trying to make a point. Well, you made it, and now he's calling your bluff. That afternoon, I found a business card in our kitchen trash can. It was for a family law attorney downtown. I Googled the name and found out that he specialized in high-conflict divorce and custody cases. My hands were shaking as I called Sel. "He's really going to do it," I said. "He's going to divorce me." "Maybe it's for the best," Sel said quietly. "What?" "Eirene, I love you, but you need to hear this. You've been lying to everyone, including yourself. If you want to be with Rowan, then be with Rowan, but stop trying to have it both ways. I don't want to be with Rowan. I want my marriage to work. Then you need to cut contact with Rowan completely and focus on rebuilding trust with Halden. I shouldn't have to give up my friends. He's not just your friend, and you know it." That night, I heard Halden on the phone in his office, speaking in low tones. I pressed my ear to the door, but I could only make out fragments of the conversation. Yes, she threatened divorce first. Multiple incidents. Evidence of deception. Primary concern is my daughter. I felt a chill run down my spine. This was really happening. The next few days were a blur of tense conversations and cold shoulders. Halden was polite but distant, speaking to me only when necessary, and spending most of his time either at work or locked in his office. Linnea kept asking why Daddy was sleeping in the guest room, and I didn't know what to tell her. On Thursday evening, I decided I'd had enough. "We need to talk," I said, knocking on his office door. "I'm busy, Eirene." "I don't care. We need to figure this out." He opened the door, and I could see legal documents spread across his desk. The sight of them made my chest tight with panic. "What is all that?" "Paperwork." "What kind of paperwork?" "The kind that protects me and Linnea." I pushed past him into the office and saw divorce petition forms, custody worksheets, and financial disclosure documents. "Halden, this is insane. You're throwing away 9 years of marriage because of some stupid misunderstanding." "This isn't a misunderstanding, Eirene. This is a pattern of deception and manipulation that I can't live with anymore." "I have never cheated on you." "Maybe not physically, but emotionally. You've been checked out of this marriage for months." "That's not true." "When's the last time we had a real conversation? When's the last time you asked me about my day, or told me about yours without lying about where you'd been or who you'd been with?" I opened my mouth to argue, but realized I couldn't remember. "We've both been busy." "No, Eirene, you've been busy with Rowan. I've been trying to save our marriage while you've been planning your exit strategy." "I never planned an exit strategy." "You threatened to divorce me when I asked you not to sleep at another man's house. That sounds like an exit strategy to me." I felt cornered and desperate. "Fine. You want to play hardball? I'll file first, and I'll make sure everyone knows that you're the one who gave up on our family." Halden looked at me for a long moment, and something in his expression shifted. "Go ahead." "What?" "File first. See how that works out for you." There was something in his tone that made me nervous. "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means I've been documenting everything, Eirene. Every lie, every inconsistency, every time you've chosen Rowan over our family. If you want to make this ugly, I'm prepared for that." "You've been documenting me. I've been protecting myself. And our daughter. I'm her mother." "Yes, you are. And I hope you start acting like it." That night, I called Rowan for the first time since the party. I needed someone on my side, someone who understood what I was going through. "Hey, beautiful," he answered on the second ring. "How are you holding up?" "Not great. Halden's talking about divorce." "Wow, that escalated quickly." "He thinks we're having an affair." There was a pause. "Are we?" The question hung in the air between us. "What do you mean?" "I mean, we've been dancing around this for months. Maybe it's time to stop pretending there's nothing between us." "Rowan, I'm married." "Not for long, from the sound of it." "I don't want to get divorced. I want to fix my marriage." Another pause. "Then maybe you should stop calling me." "What?" "Look, Eirene, you're great, but I'm not looking for drama. If you want to be with me, then leave your husband. If you want to stay married, then stay married. But stop trying to have it both ways." "I'm not trying to have it both ways." "Yes, you are. And honestly, it's getting a little exhausting." He hung up, leaving me staring at my phone in shock. Even Rowan was abandoning me. The next morning, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. "Mrs. Crowhurst, this is David Martinez from Martinez Family Law. I represent your husband." My heart started pounding. "Why are you calling me?" "I'd like to schedule a meeting with you and your attorney to discuss some urgent family matters." "I don't have an attorney." "Then I'd suggest you get one. Soon." "What kind of urgent matters?" "I think it would be better if we discussed this in person. Are you available tomorrow afternoon?" I guess so." "Good. My office at 2 o'clock. And, Mrs. Crowhurst, you might want to bring someone with you for support." After he hung up, I sat in my kitchen, shaking. This was really happening. Halden was really going to divorce me. I called my mother crying. "Mom, I need you to come with me to a lawyer's office tomorrow." "Oh, honey, it's really come to that. I don't know what else to do. Everyone's turning against me. Even Rowan doesn't want to deal with me anymore." "Maybe that's for the best." "How can you say that?" "Because maybe now you can focus on what's really important, your daughter, your family." "Halden won't even talk to me." "Have you tried apologizing?" "For what? I didn't do anything wrong." My mother sighed. "Eirene, I love you, but you need to take a long, hard look at your choices. Because tomorrow, you're going to have to face the consequences of them." That night, I barely slept. I kept thinking about everything that had led to this moment, trying to figure out where it had all gone wrong. But every time I tried to take responsibility for my part in it, I got angry again. I was being punished for having a friendship. It wasn't fair, but as I lay there in the dark, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was missing something important, something that everyone else could see but I couldn't, or wouldn't. The law office of Martinez Family Law was located in a sleek downtown building with floor-to-ceiling windows and expensive-looking furniture. My mother and I sat in the waiting room, both of us nervous and quiet. "Mrs. Crowhurst," a receptionist called my name. "Mr. Martinez is ready for you." We were led into a conference room where Halden was already seated at a large wooden table, looking calm and composed in a way that made my stomach churn. Next to him sat a man in his 40s with salt and pepper hair and a serious expression, obviously his lawyer. "Please have a seat," David Martinez said, gesturing to chairs across from Halden. "Thank you for coming." I sat down, my hands shaking slightly. "What is this about?" "This is about the dissolution of your marriage and the custody of your daughter," Martinez said, opening a thick folder. "But before we discuss the terms, I want to make sure you understand the full scope of the evidence we've compiled." "Evidence?" "Evidence of your extramarital affair with Rowan Hill." "I haven't had an affair." Martinez pulled out a tablet and set it on the table. "Mrs. Crowhurst, I'm going to show you some materials, and I want you to tell me if you still maintain that position." He pressed play on a video. It was security footage from the lobby of Rowan's apartment building, showing me entering and leaving on multiple occasions, including the night 3 weeks ago when I told Halden I was working late. "This is from his building's security system," Martinez explained. "We have footage of you visiting Mr. Hill's apartment 17 times over the past 4 months, often staying for several hours." My face burned with embarrassment. "We were working out. He's my trainer." "At 11 p.m. on a Tuesday." "He has a flexible schedule." Martinez pulled out a stack of papers. "These are printouts of text messages between you and Mr. Hill. Would you like me to read some of them aloud?" "No," I said quickly. "Can't stop thinking about last night." "You make me feel things I shouldn't feel. Wish I could stay longer, but H is getting suspicious." Martinez looked up at me. "These don't sound like messages between a trainer and client." I could feel my mother staring at me in shock. "Those are taken out of context." "Are they?" Martinez pulled out more papers. Bank records showing payments to a hotel room on 3 separate occasions, Uber receipts showing rides to and from Mr. Hill's apartment, and this... He played another video, This one from inside Rowan's apartment. It showed me and Rowan kissing passionately on his couch. I felt like I was going to be sick. Where did you get that? Mr. Hill provided it. What? When we contacted him for a statement, he was very cooperative. He said he was tired of being in the middle of a marriage dispute and wanted to clear the air. I stared at the screen in horror. Rowan had recorded us, and then he'd given the recording to Halden's lawyer. He also provided these, Martinez continued, pulling out more text messages. Messages where you told him you were planning to leave your husband. Messages where you discussed moving in together. Messages where you called your husband controlling and said you couldn't wait to be free of him. Each piece of evidence felt like a physical blow. I'd forgotten about half of these conversations, or I'd convinced myself they didn't mean what they obviously meant. Mrs. Crowhurst, Martinez said, his voice gentle but firm, I need to ask you directly, have you been having an intimate relationship with Rowan Hill? I looked across the table at Halden. His expression was unreadable, but I could see the pain in his eyes. For the first time in months, I saw him clearly, not as the controlling husband I'd made him out to be in my mind, but as a man whose wife had betrayed him and then lied about it repeatedly. Yes, I whispered. The word hung in the air like a confession at a murder trial. How long? Martinez asked. 3 months, maybe 4. And during this time, you were telling your husband that you were just friends with Mr. Hill? Yes. And you threatened to divorce him when he expressed discomfort with your relationship? Yes. My mother made a small sound of disappointment beside me. Mrs. Crowhurst, I want you to understand something, Martinez said. Your husband has been more than generous in his proposed settlement terms, given the circumstances. He slid a document across the table to me. Joint custody of Linnea, with primary residence with your husband. You would have her every other weekend and 1 evening per week. The house remains with Mr. Crowhurst, but he's willing to provide you with enough money for a security deposit on an apartment. You would keep your car and your personal belongings. I stared at the papers, the words blurring through my tears. Every other weekend? Given the evidence of deception and the disruption to the child's stability, most judges would consider this quite fair. She's my daughter. Yes, she is. And Mr. Crowhurst wants her to have a relationship with you, but he also wants her to have stability, which has been lacking in recent months. What if I contest this? Martinez and Halden exchanged a glance. Then we go to court, and all of this evidence becomes public record. Your affair, the lies, the hotel receipts, the videos, all of it gets presented to a judge. And frankly, Mrs. Crowhurst, I don't think that outcome would be favorable for you. I felt trapped, cornered, completely out of options. Can I have some time to think about it? Of course, but I should mention that Mr. Hill has already signed an affidavit stating that you told him you were planning to leave your husband for him. He's also provided a statement that you've been lying to your family about the nature of your relationship for months. He's protecting himself, I said bitterly. Yes, he is. Just like my client is protecting himself and his daughter. I looked at Halden again. Is this really what you want? For the first time since we'd entered the room, he spoke. What I wanted was for you to be honest with me. What I wanted was for us to work through our problems together. What I wanted was to not have to hire a private investigator to find out what my own wife was doing. You hired a private investigator? After you threatened to divorce me for asking you not to sleep at another man's house, yes. I needed to know what I was really dealing with. I felt completely defeated. Halden, I'm sorry. I know I screwed up, but... Eirene, you didn't screw up. You made a series of deliberate choices to deceive me, manipulate me, and prioritize another man over our family. And when I tried to talk to you about it, you made me feel like I was crazy. I was scared. Of what? Of losing you. So you had an affair. I didn't have an answer for that, because the truth was, I hadn't been scared of losing him. I'd been scared of having to choose between him and Rowan, so I'd tried to have both. And when that became impossible, I'd chosen Rowan and tried to make Halden the villain for not accepting it. "I'll sign the papers," I said quietly. Martinez nodded and pulled out a pen. "There's one more thing. As part of the agreement, you're required to have no contact with Mr. Hill for a period of 1 year, and any future relationships must be disclosed if they involve overnight visits while Linnea is in your care. You're trying to control who I date. We're trying to provide stability for a 7-year-old child who's already been through enough trauma." I signed the papers with shaking hands, officially ending my marriage and accepting that I would see my daughter 4 days a month. As we left the law office, my mother was quiet until we got to the parking garage. "I'm disappointed in you," she said finally. "I know. That little girl didn't deserve any of this. I know. And Halden, he's a good man. He didn't deserve it either. I know, Mom. I know." But knowing it and living with it were two different things. As I drove home to pack my belongings, I realized that I'd lost everything. My husband, my daughter, my home, my friends, my reputation, all for a man who'd thrown me under the bus the moment things got complicated. The worst part was that I had no one to blame but myself. 2 weeks later, I moved into a studio apartment across town. Halden kept the house, and Linnea stayed with him. I saw her every other weekend, and she was always polite but distant, like she didn't quite trust me anymore. Rowan never called. I heard through mutual friends that he'd started dating someone new, a woman who wasn't married and didn't come with legal complications. I'd demanded permission to sleep over at a male friend's house, threatening divorce if I didn't get it. I'd gotten the divorce, all right, just not the way I'd planned. Sometimes I wondered what would have happened if I'd just listened to Halden that first night. If I'd apologized for the ultimatum and agreed that sleeping over at another man's house wasn't appropriate for a married woman. If I'd been honest about my feelings for Rowan instead of lying and manipulating everyone around me. But it was too late for what-ifs. I'd made my choices, and now I had to live with the consequences. Halden had fought back with a lawyer, and he'd won.